And welcome everybody to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at all their locations. Fatty Beer is one of the premier spots to go for happy hour or any sporting event. If they're there tonight for the Four Nations final between Team USA and Canada, or just any event, make sure you let them know Two Goalies One Mike sent you. And as always, Buffalo Go Apparel. I am joined here by my co-host Connor Hurley. I can't be too loud. I am currently on location right now, being rehabbed by my aunt and uncle for, as some of you may know, the somehow found a way to break both my fibula and tibia, slipping on ice Friday morning at work, and then currently have a 18-inch titanium rod in my leg with 5 screws holding the whole thing together. So thankfully my aunt and uncle were nice enough to let me stay here for the foreseeable future. So regardless of the outcome of this game, I couldn't be too loud. But Team USA loses in overtime, 3-2. Connor McDavid getting the torch passed to him as the next golden goal scorer. Connor, Hurley, your initial thoughts?
Connor McDavid, Connor Hellebuyck, Connor Hurley, Kyle Connor. Why was he not playing? Why was Tage Thompson not on the roster? Why was Cole Caulfield not on the roster? Why was Clayton Keller not on the roster? Why was Vincent Trocheck on the roster? Why was Brock Nelson on the roster? Some questionable decisions by the USA hockey upper management, to say the least. I think we all knew that. Obviously, the team looked pretty good, especially early in the tournament and in the first game against Canada on Saturday. But they faced some injuries, and they couldn't recover from it. I do think that for most of the game, they were the better team tonight. But that was from a few players. That was from Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, the guys that you knew would be the best players for Team USA. Jacob Slavin had, I think, one of the best games he's ever had in his life. And that's really saying something because Jacob Slavin is one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. But my takeaway, and I think your takeaway too, is that you're not going to beat Canada scoring 2 goals. Even if you have the best goalie in the world, I don't think Hellebuyck played his best game tonight. I really don't. I think the third goal, absolutely no chance on. You leave the best player in the world wide open in front of the net. Connor McDavid's going to score that goal 100 times out of 100.
Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, but the first 2 goals, I think Hellebuyck probably, if I could guess, he probably wants them both back. I think the first more than the second. And each one, they weren't horrible goals. I think the first was through some traffic, but he did get a piece of it towards the end, and I think he would have wanted to fight through that traffic a little bit better. And the second, I think he was a little bit deep in his net. Really good play by Marner over to Sam Bennett, but I do think Hellebuyck was a little bit deep. Either way, really, really good game. Incredible theater. I was just watching replays of Jordan Binnington's saves in overtime, and it brought me back to
insane.
Yes, was
We're
that
talking Jordan Binnington when they made their cup run? That's what we saw tonight.
2017 Game 7, correct?
Yeah, that's what we saw.
I think everybody knows the book on Jordan Binnington at this point. He'll let in a soft goal here and there. He gets in his own head a little bit. He's a bit of a head case. But Jordan Binnington in big moments, not just Game 7 of the Cup Finals 8 or 9 years ago, but in other big games throughout his career, he does step up to the plate. And you got to give John Cooper some credit for sticking with him the entire time and knowing that he was his guy in that moment. I do think it would have been a little bit easier for Canada had they chosen Logan Thompson, who, aside from Connor Hellebuyck, by every single metric is the second best goalie in the NHL this season.
Fantastic.
And for whatever reason, they decided not to bring him on the roster. But credit where credit. I think we give Jordan Binnington a lot of shit every now and then, given the way that he reacts to certain things on the ice. But the save he made on Matthews on the back door with the blocker is a high danger, unbelievable save. The 2 glove saves that he made on both Brady Tkachuk was from a bad angle, and then also the windmill he made on Matthews.
Insanity.
Who's one of the best goal scorers in the world. Probably the best goal scorer in the world. Just absolute stones. I will give every click and clap to Jordan
Yeah.
Binnington for his performance in overtime.
Yeah, he absolutely goalied Team USA, if that's what you want to call it. That's what happened tonight.
In the overtime.
In the overtime, for sure. I will agree with you on the second goal. I thought Helly was just way too deep in his net for a guy.
Really good play, though. Really, and Brock Nelson was late getting there as well.
Yeah, great, Brock Nelson. I just
he won't be on the Olympic team.
No. You had to talk about the team, the building of this roster too. Like you have Chris Kreider, who shouldn't have been on the roster, honestly. I know he brings grit and speed, but he shouldn't have been on the roster. You left guys, not just Tage Thompson, you left Cole Caulfield off this roster. You left Suzuki off this roster. You left Jason Robertson off this roster. I just don't understand it. What Bill Guerin's thinking here is, and granted, yes, you only lost 3-2 in overtime against Canada. And
Suzuki's Canadian, by the way, but Suzuki's Canadian.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, Suzuki was left off the team. I apologize. I forget who else I was thinking of.
He was left off the Canadian team.
Left off the Canadian team. Sure. Sorry. I don't know why I said Suzuki. But
well, I mean, the three main ones for me are obviously Tage, Cole Caulfield, and Clayton Keller.
But we should talk about this too. Matthew Tkachuk, you had to have known the injury was bad.
Well, he was dressed, but
I understand. He was hurt. He sat that last game against Sweden.
Should not have even dressed. Got it. Yeah.
Not even dressed tonight.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think he tried it out and realized he couldn't go. I mean, I give him credit for that, but in a game, especially for him, like he's got a game on Saturday, right? Like he probably won't play in that game. Yeah. I mean, Tage would have taken that spot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't fault Matthew Tkachuk for trying to give it a go in a game that meant a lot to him, but he probably should have been a little bit more honest with himself and probably.
In my opinion, it's a selfish move on his part.
I wouldn't say selfish. I would say.
And what would you call it?
I would call it courageous in the sense that he thought he could do it, and then a little bit ignorant that his courage and his desire to be out there for his team got in the way of
what should have been done.
Got in the way of common sense. Yeah.
I personally think it was a little selfish on his part. I think that if they had a morning skate this morning, I don't know if they had a morning skate.
He knew for sure that he wouldn't have been able to play.
I don't know if they had a morning skate this morning or yesterday. Like, you have to know your body well enough. And he played for 7 total minutes tonight?
Yeah.
7?
No, he gave it a go. I mean, look at Brady. He was a little banged up, and he was one of the USA's best players tonight. So
yeah, but different injuries. I just, to me, you can't if in a tournament like this. I mean, I keep saying a tournament like this because we really had no idea how good this tournament was going to turn out and end up being. But you're representing your country. It's a one game elimination, winner take all situation. You just got to kind of take a look in the mirror there and be like, I'm going to hurt my team if I play tonight. They couldn't even use him. I thought maybe in the third period, okay, maybe they're going to sit him for the first 15 minutes and then they're going to see if he can give it his all the last 5. You know what I mean? Maybe he plays 2 or 3 shifts at the very end of the period, and he didn't even do that. Contributed nothing. That's just a wasted roster spot in a championship game, and that should have been Tage. And again, that's maybe on the coaching staff for not realizing that. I don't know. I just find it hard to believe the player didn't know coming into at least the pregame skate that he couldn't go.
Yeah, hard to say. I really I don't know what the injury is.
It's his groin. I'm pretty sure it's his groin, is it not?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know, to be honest. So
it's a groin, and as us as goalies know a groin. If you have a bad groin, I mean,
yeah,
you're not next to use this out there.
But no, I mean, yeah, I do think selfish is a little harsh. But either way, yeah, he probably should have had a little bit more wherewithal to know that he wouldn't have been able to do it. But maybe he realized, maybe he re-aggravated it when he went out there. Who knows?
I don't know.
Either way,
maybe
like you said, this tournament was one of the better things to happen to the sport of hockey in a long time.
Yeah. JJ Watt tweeted it out earlier. He goes, how the NHL has hit a home run with this tournament that, he had friends that has never watched hockey in their lives reaching out to him. Hey, where are we watching the game tonight? Like friends that he said have never watched hockey before in their lives. And that's not with JJ Watt. JJ Watt's like, I had my friends reaching out to me that I've never watched hockey before.
Yeah, and
wanting to know where we're watching the game.
I had similar experiences. I had an experience today at work where we covered more hockey on our website today than we ever have. We talked to the Empty Netters guys. They have a pretty popular podcast, actually based out here. We talked to them. We talked to Jeremy Roenick about this game, and he said it himself. This will be the most watched international hockey game in 15 to 20 years, and it probably will be since the Olympic gold medal final in 2010 in Vancouver. Massive success. As much as Gary Bettman gets a lot of shit, and this probably wasn't necessarily even his idea, he does get the credit for greenlighting it and also working with the Players Association to make this happen.
To get it to happen, yeah.
He also gets a lot of credit for realizing that this best on best type of tournament and drumming up interest for the Olympics next year is the best possible thing they could have done. These games next season in the Olympics aren't going to be as accessible to Americans on the East Coast or West Coast in a year from now. The Olympic Games, the Winter Olympic Games next year are in Milan, Italy. So who knows what time those games will be being played, right? Like I might be watching the gold medal game at 6 a.m. on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So to have it in prime time in a period of the sports calendar where there's not much going on right now as well. Football's over. We saw what happened with the NBA All-Star game this past weekend. Baseball's not started up yet. It is the perfect sweet spot to capture the attention of not only casual hockey fans, but casual sports fans. I was watching ESPN earlier, and I would say 85% of the coverage today, obviously their game was on their network, so it makes sense, was about this game. You never see that. You never see that in any stretch of the sports calendar whatsoever. So I do give Gary Bettman a lot of credit. And whoever came up with this idea, because it was a really, really good idea. And you thought the players wouldn't care, but you put their country's jersey on their backs and suddenly pride takes over. And it was as competitive and as high quality of hockey as I've seen in a long time on an international stage.
It's 6:04 in the morning right now in Milan, Italy. So, I mean, I'm not sure how they would adjust times to make, try and make it work for everybody, but
it wouldn't be in East Coast prime time, I'll tell you that much.
No, it would be. I can't do that math right now.
Yeah. But, so I think they'll probably try to do a noon East Coast game probably because it'll be 6 hours ahead. But yeah, even so, it's not going to be the same. So they needed to do as much as they possibly can with this tournament, and I think that they did. I couldn't have gone better, in my opinion. It could not have gone better, and I'm grateful for it. I watched every single game, at least for the most part, at least all the U.S. games, and then most of the other ones. But it is, it's a unique thing, and I'm really happy, and it makes me even excited for the World Cup of Hockey in 2028. Hopefully with the war pending in Ukraine or somebody killing Vladimir Putin. Russia's involvement would be great. You would have had to think that had the political atmosphere of the world not been what it had been, this probably would have been more than just a four nations tournament. Oh yeah, maybe they probably 5 or 6. They would have done a World Cup of Hockey probably. And if they had to add 2 or 3 more, it would have been Russia, Czech Republic, Germany, maybe even Switzerland. They've got a good amount of guys these days. So yeah, it is as heartbreaking as that is, as many flashbacks to the golden goal of Sidney Crosby in 2010, as Connor McDavid scoring the overtime goal brings back. And as a USA Hockey fan, obviously you don't want to see that. It is bittersweet, but it's the best possible thing that could have happened to the sport of hockey, and I think we can all be thankful for that. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The future of this tournament itself, obviously, slam dunk, as you said. It's a tournament that far surpassed any
all-star game we've seen in the last 2 decades. You know, the UCT, you know, I know PK Subban went on a rant today about it in terms of like the NBA all-star game, but like you have the players take it so seriously. And you know what? Politics did play into it. You'd be stupid to say they didn't.
I think that was more of like a wrestling type angle to it, though. You know what I mean? Like, I think it did. Like, obviously Trump's doing what he's doing, but I think he's largely trolling, right? And,
no, for sure. But I think like what I'm talking about in terms of politics is what's going on right now currently with the U.S. and Canada, 51st state nonsense, all of that stuff, tariffs, like that all does play into it. It played into Canada booing our national anthem, which, you know, depending on what side of the fence you sit on, you can understand it and, you know, not blame them, or you don't boo our anthem. But at the end of the day, like it did play into, you know, maybe the intensity of this tournament and just the overall viewership, because you can say that the viewership of this game was probably very reminiscent of an NHL Stanley Cup Game 7.
Well, I mean, I would say that the politics absolutely played a part in the viewership. A lot of casual people tuned into this game tonight specifically because of the politics.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people. I'm not going to get too deep into it because I don't want to get too fired up, but I think there's a lot of people that make that type of thing their entire personality. And if it's Trump and patriotism related, and they have a sports team related to it, and as much as a lot of that side says stick to sports, and they as long as it supports their agenda, they're gonna use it to support their agenda. I think a lot of people tuned in just because of that, because it was a USA versus Canada thing, and Trump is saying whatever he's saying out of his ass about making Canada the 51st state, which is never going to happen. So as much as like that's like kind of annoying because we do want to focus on the hockey, it did help.
Yeah.
It did absolutely helped. And it was reminiscent of what you think back to with the Cold War back in 1980. Obviously not nearly as serious. And the US and Canada are allies. We shouldn't treat each other as political or geopolitical enemies by any stretch of the imagination. They're one of our greatest allies, actually.
They were here for us during the wildfires in California, which
throughout history, Canada is one of our greatest allies.
They sent troops to help, you know, during the different wars we've had in the Middle East.
So to be making an enemy of Canada, some of the nicest people in the world, is the dumbest thing that you could possibly think of.
Unless you're a Leafs fan, you know, when you're in your Leafs fan uniform, y'all could fuck off. But
hear me out, like. That's also a fun geopolitical rivalry that we have,
for sure.
Right? Like the reason Leafs fans come to Sabres games is because it's cheaper to go to Sabres games and watch hockey than it is in Toronto. And we have this fun rivalry of them coming into our building and taking over the building for obvious reasons, given that we're Sabres fans. Back to the Sabres for a second, at least in the scope of this tournament, I do want to say that it was also extremely good, in my opinion. It was only 3 games, but I think Dahlin proved how good he is in the grand scheme of the NHL. He didn't get as much ice time as he should have, and he obviously should have gotten some power play time with Team Sweden. But I personally believe, and I think a lot of metrics and a lot of different well-respected analysts have supported this, he was one of Sweden's best players in the tournament. He looked unbelievable. He looked as good as we've all seen him for the past 6 years, and I think it only supports how important he is to the team. And not even on the ice, but off the ice as well. He's a superstar, and he deserves to be treated like one. And he also needs to be surrounded with the appropriate talent to meet his skill level. The 13-game winless streak was horrible for a lot of reasons, but he didn't play in 8 of those games, and he has a massive impact on whatever happens with our team specifically. And kind of not nearly as important, but also kind of fun, Henri Jokiharju had kind of a big role on Team Finland, given how many injuries they had. Of course, he gets the goal in the USA game, and then he played a good amount of ice time. Whether that helps his trade profile leading up to early March, or it means he could potentially get some ice time on the second or third pair with the Sabres coming up here. I think he helped his cause a little bit too. In terms of UPL, it's a bit unfortunate. He didn't get any.
It would have been nice to see him play.
Would have been nice. I understand why he didn't, given the season Kevin Lankinen is having with Vancouver. Obviously, UC Saros is the starter, and then they chose to go with Lankinen over UPL as the second goalie. Understand the decision given their 2 seasons. UPL, I don't think, has lived up to the contract he even got this offseason.
Nope.
I think he's been really pretty good for the most part, but at least recently he hasn't been completely on his game. So I'm not like super miffed about him not getting any time, but it would have been nice to see him to at least.
Yeah, just to your point, like it was a short tournament. It's not like you had multiple preliminary rounds, you went into a medal round. It was, Team USA had this spot locked up before their third game. So we're in a situation where Finland had the luxury of playing one of their number 2 or 3 goalies because they had a game that meant nothing. Like every game they were playing and meant something in order to have a chance to be in the spot that U.S. and Canada was in tonight. So listen, in terms of the future of this tournament, like I said, we probably, had the world not been in this where it is right now, this might have been the World Cup of hockey, but we are going to get the World Cup of hockey back in 2028, which I'm so stoked for. Because remember how great it was that in 2016, was it?
Yeah, it was 2016.
Yeah. You had Team North America, which was electric to watch, Team Europe.
And you think back to that Team North America, 12 guys from that team were in this tournament.
Yes. I wouldn't be opposed to them.
They played crucial roles. Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Jack Eichel, I think Austin Matthews, maybe? No?
Yeah.
But that was a superstar team.
Yeah. That was so good. They were so good.
And I think you remember when they beat Sweden and McKinnon had that overtime goal.
Where the backhand on Lundqvist.
Yeah, he deked Lundqvist out of his skates. If that wasn't a harbinger of what was to come, that was as good as any. But yeah, I'm excited for that too. Any situation like this, you could tell how much it means to these guys. And to have the highest level of quality on the biggest possible stage, best thing they could have done, and I'm just grateful we had it.
Yeah. I guess next, I know you say you have a hockey game to get to, so we're not going to, be here much longer. But just your final thoughts on the tournament, if you haven't already given them already. We're getting ready to get right back into it in a couple of days for the Sabres season. Unfortunately, after seeing
back to reality,
back to Beck Malenstein, Sam Lafferty.
Honestly, I was standing up for the entire overtime. I know you unfortunately couldn't stand up for the entire overtime, but
no, could not.
If you could, you probably would have.
No doubt.
It reminded me of the glory days, right? Like watching
hockey that meant something.
Yeah, watching Sabres playoff games. Bulldog actually tweeted out earlier. He did a poll. When's the last time you were this excited for a hockey game? And I think he had 3 or 4 options. One of them was the last Sabres playoff game. One of them was like in 06 or 07. And then I think the other one was the Sabres Stanley Cup final. And then another option was other. And then if so, please comment. And I commented the last meaningful Sabres game, and which was, in my opinion, that game against the Florida Panthers when Devin Levi was called up and went on that run. And had we won that game, hindsight's 2020, but had we won that game, we would have gotten the extra point necessary to make the playoffs. Ended up losing that game 2-1. Somehow Alex Lyon had 39 saves, and we couldn't score on Alex Lyon. But I remember being at work that day and being so excited to get home as soon as possible, to go home and put on the game. And it felt like a playoff game. Obviously, like meaningful regular season hockey in April feels like playoffs to Sabres fans these days. But that was the last time I was this excited for a game. So I guess long story short, I think we all love hockey. And clearly, given that there were no Sabres even involved in this game, that so many Sabres fans were tuned in. And it speaks to how popular hockey is in the Western New York, Southern Ontario area, and how many true hockey fans there really are. And all we can hope for is the Sabres to do whatever they can at the trade deadline to make hockey trades to be competitive, and eventually get back to that spot where we're all standing up in overtime in a Sabres playoff game, living and dying by every chip, every dump, every tip deflection in front of the net. That's all I could ask for at this point. And like I said about Dahlin, we have a legitimate superstar on our team that you can build around, that they've tried to build around, and they've unsuccessfully done it. So I'm still holding out hope. I am going to remain optimistic for as long as I can until they break me once again. But I don't think we're that far off. And looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah. They're talking to Austin Matthews in the locker room right now. You can't say he didn't show up. I mean, he did. He had a great game. He had a great game. But, you'd love to see him bury one of those 2 chances.
Yeah, great saves, though.
Great saves.
Great saves.
That's a filthy hat he's wearing, though. Holy shit. Anyways.
I mean, I didn't think he had a great tournament, but this game he did show up.
Definitely showed up, but just unfortunate you couldn't come out with the W. Somebody made a comment earlier too, and it was I said that too. I said it actually during the game. I said, McDavid's been really invisible in this tournament. He hasn't really, or not tournament. I'm sorry, this game. He hasn't really flashed. He hasn't made a play. This, that, and the other. And a big part of that, and I'll admit it, man. He was matched up against Eichel, and Eichel really shut him down. And I think the only reason he did get free there, and for that goal, is the fact that we got caught out there on an icing, and Matthews got caught, and Eichel couldn't take that draw.
They had switched that matchup earlier in the game. I saw a lot of people talking about it, and it does speak to how good defensively Jack Eichel's.
I hate to admit it, but I'll admit it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all knew, he's a two-way player. He's an all-around centerman. He's a top 10 player in the league. I think he showed that in this tournament. Just twist the knife a little bit deeper. Sam Reinhart didn't have the best tournament, I don't think.
I don't even think he scored.
So that's the thing, though. 4 games. I'm not gonna close the book on these guys because they didn't play well in this tournament. It's a nice weird
to see
thing.
Jeff Sanderson's kid get on the board for Team USA.
Yeah. So as you said, the Sabres at least had some impact.
They had some skin in that game.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the USA obviously could have been better constructed. They weren't, and they trotted out the guys, especially on the 4th line, that they did, and they paid the price for it.
Nothing.
Paid the price for it, even on defense, with Brock Nelson not getting back on that second goal. So is what it is. Great tournament. I am happy it happened, and I'm happy that hockey got the spotlight it deserved. So
it did, on a national stage and in the best way they could have. So that being said, guys, just remember, if you do enjoy these shows that we put on, whether it's the Sabres and, of course, covering the 4 Nations tournament, if you're watching on Twitter, please make sure you're subscribed to us, either at 2 Goalies 1 Mike. You can see me right there at Duane S39, at CHurls13. Give us a follow on the old Twitter machine. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. But most importantly, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not already, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell icon so you know when we go live. And please leave a comment. And for sure, make sure you slam that like button. Slam it hard because it does help us with the algorithm. It helps us get noticed a little bit more, jump in the timeline a bit. So please hit the like button. I beg of you, hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. I am Duane for Connor Hurley. Canada wins at the 11th. I don't know how many straight international game play best on best games against Team USA. Once again, Connor McDavid in overtime 3-2. Sucks, but we'll be back with you here this weekend for more Sabres hockey. And as always, go Team USA. Talk to you later.